VHS videotape copies of this motion picture are available in the Grandfather Mountain gift shops. You're going to enjoy your visit to Grandfather Mountain, no matter what time of year it may be, and certainly our wish is that you have a good time. Most people who know the mountain agree it's special. Grandfather is distinctive when compared with its neighbors. In fact, in many ways it differs from any mountain in the world. Probably it is also safe to say that no one will ever know all there is to know about Grandfather Mountain. But we're going to at least take a swing at presenting some of the highlights of this great peak in winter, spring, summer, and fall. All seasons are pleasant ones at the grandfather of the Blue Ridge. Springtime brings a new beginning and a new season at Grandfather Mountain. The sun rises, the mile-high swinging bridge towers above the newly warmed surroundings. Sunlight bathes mature dandelions turned to seed, and big clusters of seed will soon spread to the wind. The service tree blossoms first. Moisture from a mossy stream nourishes red trillium known as wake robin. Spring beauty buds pop open. Two early wildflowers, trout lily and painted trillium, contribute color to the scene. Pink azalea vasei is a wild azalea that blooms profusely on Grandfather in mid-May. Violets are in evidence everywhere. The cardinal is a year-round bird. Thick clusters of the wild dwarf iris carpet the forest floor, while the shrub horsesugar adds another color to the landscape. Mountain people know Rhododendron carolinianum as punctatum. The celebrated Blue Ridge Parkway, with its internationally famous Lynn Cove Viaduct, traverses Grandfather Mountain a mile from Grandfather's U.S. Highway 221 entrance, where tickets are purchased to the privately maintained travel attraction.
Thank you now.
The publicly owned Blue Ridge Parkway and the privately owned Grandfather Mountain Road furnish possibly the most exciting combination public-private scenic drive in America. The red catawba rhododendron begins blooming at the 4,000-foot level on the mountain in late May. And on Grandfather's highest peaks of nearly 6,000 feet, it is still blooming past mid-June. This is a more lengthy blooming season than on those mountains that have their rhododendron and gardens confined to one elevation. Building enough parking space on a mountain as rugged as Grandfather presented quite a challenge, as did building the famous mile-high swinging bridge. The bridge is constructed to support 3 million pounds, so actually it could handle as many as 500 people. However, the Grandfather Mountain management has picked the more modest number of 40 people as the swinging bridge load limit. Many visitors who might not agree with the 500 figure would likely say that 40 people is believable. In any event, the mile-high swinging bridge is hands down the most popular feature on the mountain, according to visitor surveys. The bridge is popular in spite of the fact that those same surveys found that 30% of women will not cross the bridge. 12.7% of men do not make it across. The natural beauty of Grandfather Mountain will always be its main charm. For years, the objective has been to hold man-made development to the minimum and to preserve and protect as best possible the marvels of nature. It is a policy that has met widespread approval. Some visitors are excited if they see a rose-breasted grosbeak or a scarlet tanager. Wild columbine is beautiful. These blossoms of false Solomon seal later changed to red berries. As the result of a contractual agreement between Grandfather Mountain and the Nature Conservancy, a substantial portion of the backcountry, including 30 miles of hiking trails, is protected by conservation easements which forbid the construction of roads or buildings. This is intended to help assure that the mountain will perpetually remain in a wild, natural state after persons living today are gone. The Nature Conservancy, as well as the National Park Service and the U.S. Forest Service, own additional lands on the slopes of Grandfather Mountain. Shown here are a yellow lady's slipper, a native red squirrel, Azalea vacei, and a bluebird ready to feed her young. May brings the jack-in-the-pulpit. The umbrella leaf spreads its shelter. Fire pink is colorful, as are tiny mushrooms and British soldiers. Flame azalea buds are shaped like a flame, and the blossoms are the color of flame. Mountain laurel flowers look like peppermint candy. Everyone investigates the big boulder, Split Rock. The Eastern Continental Divide on Grandfather directs water from two side-by-side springs, headwaters of Linville River and Watauga River. The Linville flows to the Atlantic, Watauga to the Gulf. Daisies are probably the most abundant wildflowers in midsummer on Grandfather Mountain, where picnickers enjoy the cool breezes at dozens of picnic spots. The careful and agile have numerous vantage points to reach before a hazy sun signals the end of the day. Mildred the bear was the longtime mascot at Grandfather Mountain, and its environmental habitats are named for her. Cubs are always born the last of January or 1st of February. It's hard to believe that a cub weighs less than a pound when it is born, but will weigh around 100 pounds at the age of 1 year. Bear cubs in particular, and all bears in general, are the most popular animals in the habitats. By April, cubs are roly-poly and cute, and they evermore do love to play. Mature bears do not climb trees except in emergencies. But the cubs are like squirrels and climb trees at the drop of a hat. Cubs know they're safe in the top of a tree, especially when Mama is on the ground to prevent any person or anything from approaching the tree. Feeding raw peanuts to the bears gives them a healthful food, and it also keeps the bears at the front of the habitat where they can be seen by the visitors. Every waking moment, the cubs wrestle with each other or engage in some kind of play. When Mama thinks they've played enough, she orders them up a tree for a nap. The spring-fed habitat pool is wonderfully cool in summer. For cubs who make a game out of everything, a hollow log in their habitat is a popular playground and hiding place. Climbing trees is by far their favorite pastime, both for fun and for an escape from danger. But running to Mother is the best escape from danger of all. Legislation passed by the North Carolina General Assembly more than 70 years ago wisely made Grandfather Mountain a wildlife sanctuary, and the white-tailed deer seem to know it. Not only are there deer in the environmental habitats, but frequently visitors see deer in the wild along the road up Grandfather Mountain. Fawns have spots to help them blend with the forest. In the wild, their best protection is often to simply sit still. People sometimes find a fawn in the woods and assume it is abandoned, but that is not usually the case. During summer, while the buck deer's antlers continue to grow, he is said to be in velvet. The antler growth is completed as the fall mating season approaches. The male deer rubs his antlers against trees and rocks to remove the blood-stained velvet. He then has a sharp, clean, and dangerous set of horns. The cougar, panther, or mountain lion was once native to Grandfather Mountain, but today there are no mating pairs in the wild in the eastern United States, except in Florida, and there are extremely few there. The eastern cougar is the most rare and endangered mammal in North America, and it will be a true tragedy when and if this beautiful animal becomes extinct. In the early days of its cougar habitat, Grandfather Mountain was fortunate to have one of the extremely rare eastern cougars, and she and a western cougar mate were parents to a number of cougar kittens. Heredity has placed its mark on these cougars. The western cougar is a mountains and prairies animal and has little or no interest in fish. Rivers and swamps were home to the eastern cougar, which absolutely loves to fish. Everything possible should be done to save the cougar. America's emblem bird, the bald eagle, is also a prominent resident of the habitats. Many visitors have never seen a bald eagle, and those who have rarely have seen one so close. Bald eagles are water birds, while the golden eagle is a mountains and prairies bird that cares little for the water. All of Grandfather Mountain's eagles were injured in the western United States. To save their lives, the amputation of part or all of a wing was necessary. As spring turns to summer, mountain tourism reaches full swing, and different wildflowers come into bloom. Black-eyed Susans decorate the landscape, joining the Turk's cap lily. All of the animals actively enjoy the warm moisture that summertime brings. At Grandfather, the mountain's longtime mascot, Mildred the bear, is fondly remembered as the nicest bear that has ever been. Gentle Mildred lived nearly 27 years, a longer life than any known bear in North Carolina. She lived by the golden rule and never fully understood that she was a bear. She bore 10 cubs, and her strong motherly instinct led her to adopt 3 cubs that were not hers. The little brown cub, seen here, Mildred adopted when she had 2 of her own. Later, Mildred did something heretofore unheard of. She adopted 2 orphan cubs in a year she had no cubs of her own. And this told the world what a truly remarkable bear she was. The Associated Press transmitted nationwide the news of Mildred's death, and messages of sorrow from people of all ages were received from everywhere. Sculptor John Paul Harris created Mildred in clay, then cast her likeness in bronze to be the centerpiece of the lobby of the Grandfather Mountain Nature Museum. Dr. Lynn Rogers, the leading authority on the black bear in the United States, said Mildred's passing was noted more widely and with greater sadness than was the passing of Smokey a few years ago in Washington. The rugged terrain at Grandfather makes it home for the raven, which more frequently is found in western United States, Canada, and Alaska. An aquarium in the visitor center features rainbow, brook, and brown trout. The opossum is a nocturnal creature seldom seen by day. The summertime feathers of the male goldfinch are brilliant. The raccoon is another night roamer. In early May, the ruby-throated hummingbird arrives at Grandfather Mountain. It is seen buzzing and chirping around the wildflowers and nature museum feeders until early September. Not only is the ruby-throated the only hummingbird species in eastern United States, it is the only one that stores enough sugar and fat to make the 500-mile non-stop flight across the Gulf of Mexico to its winter home in Central America. Following the summer hatch and running through August is the period when the ruby-throated hummingbirds are storing up strength for their long flight. Buttercups add color. Huckleberries, as well as tea berries, are edible and tasty. The yellow-fringed orchid, the delicious blackberries, the lavender blossom of spiderwort, jewelweed, and a flicker feeding her young all contribute to the summer scene. One of Grandfather's big events, Singing on the Mountain, has been held each 4th Sunday in June for 70 years.
Singing on the mountain, come sing with me. Singing on the mountain, come sing with me. I've been down in the valley, and I'm so glad to be singing on the mountain.
The Sing is a county fair, a singing, a Sunday school picnic, and a preaching rolled into one. For years, it has been the largest annual gospel sing and religious gathering in the mountains of the South. Bagpipes producing a different kind of music are associated with the Grandfather Mountain Highland Games and gathering of Scottish clans. The peaks of Grandfather towering over the games give Scottish flavor to the setting. The Grandfather Mountain Highland Games have become the largest annual Scottish celebration in the United States. The active Scottish clan societies in America are the official sponsors of this colorful series of events each second weekend of July. A traditional Scottish event which attracts attention is tossing the caber. Putting the stone takes a strong lad too. One key to the popularity of the games is that all members of active clan societies are given opportunity to march behind their respective tartan banners. Scots everywhere are thrilled by Scotland the Brave. Border collies, or Scottish sheepdogs, are amazing herders, even when herding ducks. Their exhibitions in the center of McRae Meadows arouse envy in owners of untrained dogs. This concert on the peaks is called Scotch on the Rocks. Of the smaller animals who reside at Grandfather, the groundhog, also known as the woodchuck, is so well known as a weather forecaster that he even has his own day, February 2nd. Bees love flame azalea. A pair of wood thrushes are attentive to their young. Bobcats spell danger for small creatures, like a cottontail rabbit or an industrious field mouse. Wild raccoons are often domesticated, but the red fox is always quite wary. No one can accuse the barred owl of not giving a hoot. His call is typically 8 hoots. The screech owl is much smaller. The tiger swallowtail enjoys white snake root. A skunk takes a stroll for a whiff of fresh air. The chipmunk uses his cheeks to carry his food to storage, reconnoitering carefully wherever he goes. The Grandfather Mountain Nature Museum is intended to help interpret the mountain for the visitor. These exhibit panels give information on animals and the habitats. This tells about the great French botanist André Michaux, who came to Grandfather Mountain 200 years ago. Michaux was the first to discover and name many of Grandfather's wildflowers, among them the beautiful flame azalea, the red catawba rhododendron, the buttercup, the spring beauty, and the lovely ironweed. Michaux's astounding list of friends included King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, General Lafayette, President George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and Benjamin Franklin. He discovered Shortia, the plant lost for 100 years. Asa Gray, the noted American botanist, came to Grandfather years later looking for Shortia, but did not find it. He did find the rare and beautiful plant now known as Gray's lily. Paul Marchand made the outstanding displays of wildflowers, mushrooms, and edible berries seen in the Nature Museum. His work is in museums and collections the world over. Dr. Rollin Hauer, who designed the Grandfather Nature Museum exhibits, was for 30 years in charge of natural history exhibits for the Smithsonian Institution.
The design and production of this museum has been a most enjoyable task by virtue of the fact that I had someone like Paul Marchand produce the wildflowers that you see behind me. Paul is the finest producer of artificial wildflowers that exists anywhere in the world.
These Marchand models are perfect replicas of the real plants. Paul Marchand is a true artist, and the Grandfather Museum is pleased to have so many of his masterpieces. North Carolina has perhaps the greatest variety of minerals and gemstones to be found anywhere in America, so that part of the Nature Museum is dazzling. Jack Hanahan, geology professor at Belmont Abbey College, acquired this large emerald and the many other fine mineral specimens to be seen in the museum. Each of the minerals is interesting to Dr. Rollin Hauer.
These 4 mineral exhibits at the Grandfather Mountain Nature Museum, according to my friend John White, former curator of minerals at the Smithsonian Institution, is the finest assembled collection of North Carolina minerals anywhere.
Another display explains that Grandfather has rock formations 600 to 700 million years old, some older than 1 billion years. Visitors can touch a 1 billion-year-old stone. Teachers and parents sometimes give young people quizzes to see what they have learned. To prepare the Daniel Boone display, Dr. Hauer used latex to make a mold of the original section of tree believed to have been carved by Boone in 1775. Hauer also made the replica of Boone's rifle. The Nature Museum's Indian exhibit is particularly interesting because it separates the Native American artifacts into categories and historical periods. Persons who own arrowheads and other relics can readily identify them by comparing them with the materials in the exhibit. Extremely pertinent to Grandfather Mountain is the exhibit defining the problem of air pollution, now damaging all of North Carolina's high peaks. Since 1964, many of Grandfather's trees have been killed and all have been stressed by acid rain. To render and interpret the birds commonly seen in the mountains of North Carolina, Grandfather employed the wooden sculptures of another master, Bill Christmas. His carvings compare well with the real thing. The Nature Museum shop has gifts and souvenirs relating to nature and Grandfather Mountain. The museum auditorium provides education and entertainment and allows Grandfather to host annual weekends on nature and news photography. The restaurant, decorated with murals of animals and birds in Grandfather's environmental habitats, serves delicious food. In September, the berries of the mountain ash turn brilliant orange. Some different birds are seen then, which along with late summer varieties of flowers, signal that fall is close at hand. Beautiful purple ironweed and pretty but poisonous baneberry stay loud and clear that fall is almost here. The splendor of the foliage in October makes the whole month a very special time at Grandfather Mountain. Camera dealers sell lots of color film, and home video cameras keep grinding. October brings on the woolly worm to help old-timers forecast the severity of winter weather. If more bands of black encircle the body of the woolly worm, then mountain folks predict winter will be rough. Every year, some expert will also say that fall color will be greater or less than it was last year, but it is generally much the same. Marvelous. It is also predictable that the color at Grandfather's elevation will be the best the middle of October and will peak at lower elevations in the mountains later in the month. Crowds jam the mountains on fall weekends, so in October it is best to visit during weekdays if you can. Ravens love Grandfather in winter, as do the colorful evening grosbeaks, the nuthatches, and the downy woodpeckers. Most snows at Grandfather Mountain are 3 to 5 inches, and the road is usually cleared with the mountain's own snow removal equipment. Grandfather has had an official U.S. Weather Bureau station for 40 years. The coldest temperature ever reported was 32 degrees below zero. The highest wind was 172 miles per hour. The most total snow in one winter was 112 inches in 1960. Purple finches arrive with the snow, and in every direction the scene resembles a Christmas card. Several fine ski slopes are located within a few miles of Grandfather Mountain, and skiers rejoice when man-made snow is reinforced by a deep natural snow. It is unusual to see bears in snow. They hibernate, but deer have to forage for food, as do cougars. The western cougar particularly seems to enjoy cold weather because perhaps its ancestors were accustomed to chilly air in the high mountains of the west. No, the cougars don't mind snow, they love it. Slate-colored juncos, also called snowbirds, like it too. Grandfather is open for visitors in winter if roads and paths are clear of snow and ice and winds are not too strong. Grandfather has more rare and endangered species than any mountain in the east. Experts can tell this southern flying squirrel from the endangered northern species, one of 43 animals, birds, and plants Grandfather has that are on the endangered list. Heller's blazing star is a truly rare flower, with more found on Grandfather than anywhere. Roan mountain bluets also have protected status, along with the Blue Ridge goldenrod. The magnificent bird of prey, the peregrine falcon, was extinct in North Carolina prior to a release of 80 young birds. 21 of these first spread their wings in flight at Grandfather Mountain. State and federal wildlife officials set a goal of 5 nesting pairs for the Peregrine Reintroduction Program and were quite pleased when the cooperative birds exceeded the goal. The released peregrines or their offspring are sometimes spotted in flight above the mountain, but rarely. The peregrine falcon is still high on the endangered list in North Carolina. The United Nations has designated Grandfather Mountain as an international biosphere reserve. The attraction is the first privately owned property in the program, which has 311 sites in 81 countries. The mountain's unique characteristics, protected by preservation agreements with the Nature Conservancy, led to this highest possible international acclaim. We've seen flowers, cougars, bears, and the mild high swinging bridge. Grandfather Mountain provides family fun. We've seen the bear cubs wrestling, the museum exhibits, and Mildred the bear's statue. Hopefully it was educational. Likely it was fun. You're invited to come back at some different season to enjoy a warm welcome at the Grandfather of the Blue Ridge.